Welcome, Poggers, to another episode of The Pog State, the very first for 2024. We are back once again, and of course we are, because we're going to be here every single year into year infinity. Not sure about that, but it's been an absolutely fantastic off-season. I hope you guys have had a wonderful new year. We're all back. I'm Atlas. This is Valdez, joined by Chronicler and Wolf as well, and you know that the very first episode of the year is always the banger. This is the one where we talk about our predictions, and the one where we always get them horribly, horribly wrong. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. First, though, I want to stick away from League of Legends, and let's have a chat about what happened in the off-season. What did you guys get up to? Starting with you, Wolf. Where'd you go? What'd you do?
I traveled a little bit. I went to Hiroshima. I played a lot of video games. I was really sad during the off-season because I didn't have LCK, and
relatable.
I've been cured, so I feel better now.
Recovered.
I don't know, just a basic, Wolf off-season. Play a lot of JRPGs, and that's it.
Nice. Chronicler?
Yeah, classic Chronicler off-season. Cooked a lot, played a bunch of great visual novels, and went back to the Netherlands, and it was lovely. It wasn't. It was very stressful to deal with a lot of bureaucracy stuff because of my upcoming wedding, and I would not recommend getting married to a person from another country, as I'm sure you guys also had to deal with when.
That was great. Super smooth.
Well,
fine.
for
No
me,
worries, no
it was a nightmare.
Might be an issue with your home country.
yeah, actually, might be. Well, no, it's on both sides, so it's equally rough. But outside of that, it was a great time, and I'm really happy to be back in Korea. Oh, and I played a lot of board games as well. Self-explanatory. Yeah, you gotta. Yeah.
Good.
Like Gloomhaven, it was fun.
Nice.
Without us.
Well, we can still play
in
it.
the Netherlands without us.
So what did you do, Valdez, apart from not playing Gloomhaven?
I went to China for 2 weeks.
Oh, I remember that. Oh, God, I'm so sorry.
Real battle.
It was hard, but I got through it. Came back and
Good food, though, yeah?
Yeah, great food. Sichuan food was great, and came back and played a lot of video games, and that's about it. Played with my cats.
They're very cute.
Got some coffee, during the day. Go out to the cafe.
You have a great cafe near Brendan. Actually, I've been there a bunch of times. It's really nice.
Me too. It's pretty good.
I haven't been.
Not yet.
I went to Vietnam for the first time for New Year's. It was a whole lot of fun. You know how you have to choose on New Year's Eve? Do you want to become very inebriated and party and do the countdown, or do you go to sleep very early and wake up and do the watch the sunrise? We elected, my wife and I, to do the watch the sunrise in the new year.
That's a great choice, but it's not a classic.
Have you really? We have that discussion almost every year.
I think apparently at least 2 people in the world do this.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it sounds
never
great. I think it's an
anyone
awesome
else.
choice, especially if you're there.
you
but
haven't done like the welcome the new year with the sunrise thing before? No?
Too hungover to see sunrise.
Too
on
much
New Year's
fireworks.
Always
When I was young, I used to
Always
be able to do
asleep.
both.
Or still
so you do
awake.
the countdown, and then you just stay up and then watch the sunrise. But this involved going to the top of a mountain in Vietnam, and then as the sun's rising, it's rising over like a sea of clouds that are drifting through the mountains and stuff like that. And it's really, really pretty. And that was a whole lot of fun. So we did that. And then I came home, and then you and I went snowboarding, and it was the
my
best.
God, I forgot
it
about
was
that.
life-changing. And I hadn't been
For one of
snowboarding
us.
since I was like 16 years old, which is a lot more years than I'd care to admit ago. And oh my God, it's my new favorite thing in the universe. Since then, I've bought snowboard boots, and I am now ready to become a professional snowboarder. So my job on the side will be professional snowboarder from here on out.
It's the only way you can be a professional snowboarder, so that's a good
I've-
good call.
I fell a lot.
That happens, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
But it was fun. It was fun.
I didn't fall.
It was a good
once
experience.
during the snowboarding trip.
You should come to the next
Maybe
one.
you did. How do you remember?
I wasn't there, but I know I didn't fall during the duration of the
Are you sure?
snowboarding trip. Yeah.
Oh, actually, yeah. Were we keeping tabs? How do you prove that you didn't fall?
Maybe you
Just
did.
had
I didn't fall.
You might have had a fall.
I don't remember the last time I've fallen. It's been at least a few weeks.
I definitely fall, but I just fall a lot in general
Oh, yeah.
because I trip over stuff.
He
That's
does
not
have a lot of
snowboarding
legs.
related. That already happened. Yeah.
All right. The off-season was crazy fun and super cool. As you guys know, let us know in the comments what you guys did while there was no LCK, apart from be sad that there was no LCK. Do you know what the best part about the off-season is? It ends. And now we have LCK. So let's get into it. There's been a bunch of changes to the Rift and all this sort of stuff. We've had a whole bunch of changes to the teams as well. And before we go into all of the predictions that we have, let's have a bit of a chat about week 1 and some of the outcomes. Because I think up until today, I feel like it was cruising through and everything was kind of like going as we expected. Maybe KT was overperforming, as you know, if they win, we generally do say. But otherwise, like up until today, it was pretty smooth. And today is Sunday, by the way, because you guys are watching on a Wednesday. So today is the last day of the first week. And yeah, KT versus DK was crazy.
It was really awesome. It was probably the most fun match and like most back and forth match that we've had all week. But outside of that, I think that it was a week that pretty much went according to expectation when it comes to results. I don't think we had any. Usually at the beginning of every split, we have like something that just blows our minds. And I don't think that we had any of that this week.
Yeah,
from
I
the
feel
top
like
of my head.
Generally speaking, in week 1s, we have like one favored team drop a game or like bomb a game at least, even if they win the series, where you question, is this team actually good? Or they will lose the series and you're like, maybe this team is actually bad. That seemed like a super team. And then, you know, it corrects itself over the next few weeks. But I feel like overall this week we didn't really see that. I think the one surprise for some Scrim believers was that Kwangdong seemed not great. But we were all pretty cautious about our optimism about them. So
I never had any in the beginning.
No,
so.
I kind of didn't.
That's what I mean. I'll say it in a nice way.
I did because of Cuz, and yeah, didn't pan out.
Yeah.
He looked good today.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll be not as rough, but they're going to start 0-3, so I'm not very optimistic.
Yeah, they're going to need to call up their young gun in Challenger. I
Don't
think
do it.
Tayan's having a bit
Don't
of a
do
struggle.
it.
They're going to need that god.
Don't do it.
We'll get into that
bull.
later.
He's got to get in there.
You know, Bull beat 2-1.
Yeah, I was there. I was
it's
watching.
T1.
Yeah. I think I was
T1
I was
challengers.
with you in Discord while it was happening, live and uncut. Well, it was happening 2 hours later than it should. That particular day. Good times. Absolutely fantastic. I do want to go into some of the big winners. So before we do predictions, I think we should probably sort of go over exactly what has changed for a lot of the teams. Because if you're coming in and you're watching an episode of the Pog State after being like, wow, this KT roster with Cuz and BDD and Keen is like so good. Let's look forward to that next season. That's not what the team looks like at all at the moment. In fact, it looks a little bit more like 2022 DRX, which is kind of hilarious. So who is the biggest winner, do we think, when it comes to the off-season changes? And I think for this, I'm sorry, T1 fans, we're just going to have to leave T1 over here. Like,
You said changes.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, Gratz,
Hey, they
you got
got Coma.
You got Coma.
That was actually going to be my
biggest
answer.
winner.
Yeah.
And that's super cool. Yeah, that's great. But, like, not really too much of a change. A lot of the other teams, though, a lot of pretty meaningful ones. So pick a team, and let's go through why you think it's a really
KT
good one.
Rolster.
It's a good one.
They won.
After today.
They
Show
won.
me your
They
work.
won compared to
Show me
last
your
summer.
I mean, I don't know. Like, maybe they just have the magic touch. It just feels like this combination of players, which, if you don't know, is, of course, perfect from challengers.
Of course.
The perfect
But actually,
player.
you know, Pioshik, Deft, and Beryl. And then they added BDD, which was, you know, probably an upgrade compared to Zeka, I would say, although he was very good in the Worlds run. And then, of course, they don't have Kingen, but Perfect looks to be pretty good in that slot. So, in terms of magical runs that you can make, sometimes you do need a little bit of this weird magical touch from some of the players, and they kind of just got the band back together. I was a big non-believer at first. I'm like, this team is not going to be good. I think that it's
They still have a chance to not be
Far
good,
Cry.
don't worry.
Still a chance, you know. Maybe
Every
DK,
time.
Maybe DK just had like a rough week, and KT took advantage of that. Whatever. But they looked quite good, and yes, it's not the all-pro 5 players in the front just yet, as far as we know. It's still very early, but maybe as a 5-man unit, maybe as a roster, these guys are actually going to be one of the best, and maybe contend for like some international spots. So
It
I think it's more of a discussion rather than claiming that KT.
Sure, I was
was
going
the
to say,
biggest-
it almost
I don't
sounds like
think
a
they're the biggest
religious
winner.
fanatic. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
what
yeah.
you're describing.
Well, but you always have
I
to
was
be. It is
reveling.
KT.
I was. I loved this sermon. This
Yeah.
was my favorite. so far of the
spoilers.
date.
No spoilers, Max.
In terms of my feel is I think that Genji and Hanwha got the best like technical upgrades to the roster. I think everyone kind of agrees, but I guess if I take Genji, obviously getting Canyon with Keen means that you have two insanely strong winning lanes almost guaranteed for Canyon, which is one of the issues he had on D+. And then getting Lehens back just always feels great. So, for me, going into this before this week, just looking at the rosters themselves, I thought, okay, Genji is the biggest winner in terms of changes. And I really think their potential is insanely high. And we haven't even really seen Canyon yet because he just plays Sejuani, but my hopes are pretty high. Maokai a little bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's not much better.
That's it. Yeah, I thought the jungle meta was going to be more fun, but it's really not.
It sort of started off seeming
off
it was
good.
going to be fun.
Brand?
Yeah.
Brand? And then now it's just Maokai Sejuani.
Hey, the Xin Zhao's fun.
Zerayumi.
True.
Oh, sorry, Valdez. Yeah, today we had the,
But it
the
lost.
At least it
Zerayumi
wasn't
Lucian
Lucian
Melia.
Nami.
Yeah, if it was Lucian Nami, then he might
a
not
little
have been on
scared.
the space afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Do you have another one to talk about?
I was waiting till the loss, but it's Nongshim. It's the boys.
No, they're over with T1. They didn't change either.
No, they got Colmy.
Call me already played a
Biggest
couple of
call-up.
games.
He played
Of
no,
the season.
no, because he.
I'm kidding,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you're
No, it's just for record because Atlas is correct, but he played 4 games last year in spring because of COVID, so he was called up when Fiesta was
up.
sick. And my first pick would be Genji, but I do genuinely think that Calmy is a really, really exciting prospect. I think for Bulldog was another mid laner that we were pretty excited about. Hasn't really panned out yet, and I don't see any indication.
Looked a lot better today.
He did,
It was at
but I
least that.
still think that given that we're only going to see him on Kwangdong, and Kwangdong doesn't seem to be the best place for a player to showcase what they got. And Nongshim, even though I don't think that the ceiling of the players is necessarily higher, I think you'd even argue that Kwangdong has a higher ceiling. I do think that Calmy slots in very well into this roster, gives them a way to remedy their biggest issue, which was Fiesta, who was just outside of a very specific picks, I think, a really big liability. And I think that this might be the season where they may actually make a serious possible run towards playoffs, which for these players would be akin to, the bro run that we had a couple of years ago.
Are you one of the people in the LCK Discord that changed your icon to Nongshim first place? Did you do that?
No, I don't. And I also don't actually think that they'll make playoffs, but I hope that they do.
They were first place, though.
They
Yeah,
were.
remember?
Yeah, no, I know.
On
They
the
were.
standings, yeah.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Short-lived. But that the obvious answer, I think I would go with Wolf, would be, in my opinion, Genji. But I do think Nongshim has actually had a pretty successful offseason as far as what you can do while still leaving that roster mostly intact.
Yeah, and I feel like I guess it's my turn, but I've run out of positives, so I'm just going to go on the other end of it. Because for every winner in a Stove League or, in the off-season, there has to be a loser. And when we've got these teams that we're looking like pretty hyped about, right? Like Halma Life Esports, basically Genji plus 2 really good carries, right?
Viper no longer in Elo hell?
Yeah, Viper not an Elo hell. Like Viper Delight, probably one of
Grizzly.
the on-paper best
That's fine,
bottom
he's a
lanes ever.
challengers.
And, the bear will be back, I'm sure. And he's performing decently in Challenger as well, so it's fine. When you have all of these really big changes that are positive, it can be a little bit rough. And D+, I think, is like more of the medium changes. Like, I think that Kingen in that Aatrox game looked okay, but then got gapped by Perfect in the final game of their most recent series, and that's always just a little bit of a weird type situation. So I think I'm on the fence about that. But, bro, wow.
Oh,
Talk
no.
about, like...
It's not looking
riches
good
to
for
rags.
Leafers.
It's riches to rags for the bro. They lost their
Talk
general.
about lower middle class to rags. Yeah.
Inflation is hitting everyone.
Yeah. And I have to do it because I was so disappointed. I think when it comes to the off season, I was a big fan of Bro. I love the Giga Chads, and it was so fun all last year to get behind them, but I feel like so much of the magic has gone missing, and then also every single one of the changes feels like an active downgrade. Apart from Gideon, I think Gideon has a lot of potential, but now I'm just sad for Gideon being stuck on this team that's going nowhere, and I'm always sad for Morgan. He's still there, but he's a top laner. He's on an island, and then he's being dragged down.
He also dragged himself down by picking Renekton, which didn't end
Yeah.
up going too well.
That was really not it.
And then DRX, I have a little bit more hope for that. Maybe they'll like somewhat stabilize, but it's
Get Pleta a team, man.
get Pleta. That's kind of summarizes it. I think Teddy in particular, Teddy and Rascal. I don't think that they are necessarily having as weak individual game performances as someone like Setap, for example. But the main issue for me is that those players we should hold to much higher standards given
Absolutely.
what we know they're capable of and their history. And DRX is not looking too hot. And then they did have a decent strength of opposition, but not crazy by any means.
No. And then you've got FearX, which is the last team that we have to talk about. And I was sort of like cautiously optimistic moving into the week, I guess, about like how they would perform.
Still
But,
am.
I mean, ish. I'm like, They played Brand Jungle. It was cool.
Execute's fun.
Execute.
He's
is-
crazy.
Yeah, Jonghoon, of course.
It was against Bro.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I know.
But that was against,
It was
yeah,
against Bro.
yeah, sadness incarnate. Yeah.
Yeah. Hashtag I'm your Giga Chad.
Is
Right,
that,
Wolf?
are we making that happen?
I'm your Giga Chad. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
slogan they turned down for some reason in the board meeting. So the legend
Sad.
Very
goes.
strange.
Wow, the disappointment never ends, does it?
It's because it's fun to love Bro, but it's also very not fun not to love Bro.
Yeah. Well, you just
No one
remember.
bro anti.
I'm remembering. I'm remembering the times. You know.
Sure, he's accepted it.
Do you remember when this team, like, just cast your mind back? It was Morgan, Umpty, Lava,
Lol King
Henna,
Lava.
Delight. That roster is
Strong team.
actually super good
Don't
in
look-
my brain.
Don't look up what Lava's doing now. It's not good. It's
Hey,
not
he's still
the law.
playing.
It's not good.
It's better than Fly. You know, we've lost mid laners to nothing before. At least he's doing some stuff.
Lol Duke Lava.
Yeah, but there are definite winners, and I think the top 5 of the LCK is going to be a really interesting tale of shuffling to see who's going to be going where and where everyone's going to land. Because right now, Harmon Life Esports, best team in the league. But they have not necessarily faced the best competition, and it's only going to continue to be pretty good for them, you'd expect, because I believe their first match next week is against Live Sandbox. That should be coming up in like a day or two for you guys.
Which team?
Oh, Live Sandbox is not Live Sandbox anymore. They are FearX, and they are not Foxes. They're FearX.
Yes.
FearX.
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 Very important.
FearX. DRX. FearX.
FearX.
DRX. 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 FearX. 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 DRX. DRX. FearX. FearX.
Yeah.
FearX. It's FearX.
He got there.
Yep. I think that blood vessel
was
may have
great, yeah.
exploded. But no.
It's fine. You didn't need
absolutely
those.
fine. So off the back of this, I guess we have to put our money where our mouth is. And I was sort of hoping that we were going to get to a point where we could have predictions and have a huge discussion about where teams are going to be moving. But I have a feeling we're relatively aligned when it comes to this one. Right? Like, I don't know. We all did a silent hand-in of where everyone's predictions were. After this week, you know, outrageous. We have to say exactly where all of the teams are going to be going. The alignment is much higher than what it was. And remember, we
Yeah.
have one chance to swap our predictions halfway through the season. So after round 1, we get to switch one team with another team. And if I did that, I could just get to Valdez's predictions.
Kind of.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a. I
Wait,
think
actually, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah,
should we get through because it is very tier listy. I think.
yeah I think so.
Which is if you look at where the differences are, they're mostly shuffles within the same tier that we've seemingly identified. Shall we just go from the bottom?
I think we should go.
I think we need to go from the bottom. You might have already.
Let's start with a unanimous.
It's a
vote.
unanimous 10th.
Yeah, and that's the Bros. Unfortunately, we're just not feeling like they're gonna do too much winning. But I personally think that the bottom 3 are really close.
I think that Bro
to the
is a
bottom
solid
of the
10th.
To the bottom of the standings. Yeah.
They are very close to the bottom, yes. Bro, I think for me is a solid 10th. The other two, Quano and DRX, interchangeable at this point. It's hard to tell. It's just based on like a gut feeling at this point, and most of us have gone for DRX 9th.
So for me, the reason why I feel like Bro is 10th as opposed to DRX and Kwangdong, I think for DRX and Kwangdong, I was able to identify stuff where like, oh, maybe. Maybe in a better world. For Kwangdong, it's the top half and maybe some swaps. I don't towards the bottom half of the map. For DRX, it was like individual performances. I think that Sponge had like one game really good. Plata has actually been very impressive. So there's glimpses, and for Bro, I got nothing.
I mean, bro to me has had like they've had opportunities in draft they didn't seize. They had opportunities in game they didn't take. I felt like they got gapped in kind of every lane in that series against Fearx, and it's tough love. It's harsh realities here, but I saw that series and I was like, it's doomed. There's no hope. Like maybe we can see something change. But you've seen these symptoms in 10th place teams all the time. When Karas was on that Hanwha Life roster, that was also a really, really weak roster. It was the same kind of thing where it's like first pick a 0 every game because that's the champion pool. And then everything else just kind of falls into place comfort-wise, but it doesn't make sense. And I just feel like this team has no direction right now. And maybe that'll change, but I think it would almost be ridiculous to not predict this team to be 10th place based on the start they've had, and it's really sad, unfortunately. But
yeah,
I mean, Karas is a player that I'm ready to say, like, you know, it's been a few years. It's been quite a few now. You know, we've always talked about like maybe he'll be good. Like I've heard
MVP
so much.
of Challenger
He had
2020.
that Akali play.
one.
But
Wolf, how could you forget?
he
Wait,
he isn't excelling at the moment.
Yeah, the Hanwha Akali play, the one play that he had in that year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like really cool. And
That happened, and it was between like around tier 2,
yeah, top lane.
just above top lane, just above the blue base.
What did he do?
He just killed a bunch of
He
people.
pressed some buttons on Akali.
Whoa, it's really
Yeah.
cool.
I
changed
think
my mind.
No,
can
you
I
didn't.
change where they are in the standings?
this team doesn't have a rich challengers roster either. Like
now
Kanye,
I'm-
I think is actually
Where
pretty
did Rich
good,
go?
but
Is he still thriving in the LPL?
No, he's in LCS.
he's in
LCS?
Dignitas. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course he is.
He's friends with Bakery. The Dignitas. Come on, like from the Heroes.
Sorry.
I'm the only one who knows. But
Oh right, because Rich was the faker of HOTS.
yeah, but I legit think this team can't really make changes either, and so
Yeah.
it's not looking good.
It just feels like a total lack of confidence for every single player. Like, nobody has any confidence. Morgan's trying to be like, I have confidence. I'm going to play my comfort champ. We're going to make it happen. Then he got gapped as well, and we're like, what is happening? Like, the bottom lane was losing. The mid lane was losing. When they grouped up, nobody did anything. Gideon's like, I'm going to go. They're like, I guess, if you want.
Good
No,
luck.
like, we're not going to be there with you. And that, I think, is the biggest. Like, I'm with you, Wolf. When we watched the series against Fearx, it was like, okay, I guess they just don't have anything then. And that's really sad. You know, I wish Bro were better, but might be time to move on to bigger and greater Giga Chads.
Well, I think that, you know, as far as replacements are concerned, that's a pretty good one. But we have to stay down here for a little bit longer because I don't think that the story gets very much better when we move to DRX. I think there are a lot of positives to draw from what we saw from a lot of these players, especially the call-ups in Challenger over the last couple of years. I think Satab definitely had a rough time here in the LCK, but we have seen that he has been able to do good things in the past. Like Chronicler was saying, and like Wolf was saying, like I think that like there is a bit of hope for DRX as opposed to Bro, where it's just hopeless.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like I guess we'll tie this into a Kwangdong discussion a little bit. Like,
Yeah, we can do both at the same time.
because I'm the only one who put DRX at 8th. Everyone else put them at 9th. My early predictions, I've been saying this a lot. It's kind of the known quantity versus the somewhat unknown quantity, and they have Rascal. Mm-hmm. Setab has had some high highs, and Pleta is really good.
Play
and
so good, man.
He's kind of insane. So I look at Kwangdong, I don't have the same confidence in the bot lane at all. I think Cuz is trying his best to hold this team together, but
Every time I think, I actually have a physical reaction every time I think about that game, that Kwangdong game. Oh,
and Dudu.
the really bad one.
Veldis
Today or like, what are you talking about?
So translator's
mean?
note, Veldis here is insinuating that every Kwangdong game is like that.
I mean,
So
there just have
far,
been many that
there haven't
looks
been
like
that
the
many
ones
actually.
today.
But Dudu also has not inspired confidence the same way he did on their weak roster last season and in spring season of last year. So far, it's only been 4 games, sadly for Kwangdong, but does not, to me, look like this roster is going to bring it together. I see the same drafting run it backs. I see the same issues. I've heard so much about the scrims and how well they prepared T1 and all that, and they trained a lot, and some of the fundamentals did improve, but I think the individual play is still just too low. It's a tier below the individual play of DRX's players, in my opinion, and so that's why I think they're lower than DRX.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's your power of persuasion, but I kind of want to swap. But I'm okay with keeping it. In the performances that DRX have had, they've made me more sad because I was more
Teddy
disappointed.
and Rascal.
Yeah,
that's I think the difference maker for me is that to me it feels like, and if Teddy and Rascal get it together, that roster I think can be one of the teams that tries to fight with Nongshim and with FairX for like maybe per chance. But if they, and I think history has taught us that in many cases that's just not true. Like players that most players are just not able to get back to their peak unless they're like literal deft faker level where you have like multiple cycles of them getting back on top. I don't think for these players right now that's looking too hot. To me, the one thing I want to note about DRX specifically is that I was actually surprised that Sponge to me has looked better so far than Satap, whereas in Challengers that was kind of the opposite.
Yep.
I thought Sponge was really going to need more time, but I think him and Plata have been, for me, the kind of shining lights. But on average, I think I rate DRX lower. And for Kwangdong, it's a really different story where I'm like, outside of game number 1 against T1, which I think, is it an anomaly? Is it just Kwangdong being Kwangdong? Probably a little bit of both, because I don't think any of their other games were that one-sided, particularly the series against Hanwha today. I think their top half actually is great. Like, obviously, I think Cuz is, even though he has some of the same dying at level 3 shenanigans that he had last year, is a really, really great jungler. I think it was really important to last year as well. Bulldog, outside of the horrible Hui game, has actually looked good on both the Corki and the LeBlanc. Dudu seemingly is getting it together a little bit, but I also think that the bot lane is like
unsalvageable.
It
seems like
it's an anchor.
It actually is. So it's yeah. So to me, then becomes about is the bot lane so unsalvageable that when they play against DRX and Bro, that's going to be a lost condition. I'm like, it might be.
Oh wait.
That's the way I look at it. That's why I would have
Pro,
them.
you're fine. Yeah,
well,
against Pro, you're fine.
That's my point, right? And then I think the top half of the map is able to pull them through.
I mean,
But it's
the one thing about Taeyun is he consistently gets caught, whether it's in lane or out of lane, and League of Legends teamfights just end instantly when the AD carry is killed first. And objectives are taken when the enemy AD carry is killed first. It's very rare to see, like, Taeyun dies, and then Kwangdong's like, well, we can win this without the AD carry. It's actually fine because our top laner is so big or our mid laner is so big. I mean, it can happen, obviously, but his proclivity, let's say, to get caught and get picked has been a huge liability for them, and
I'm just imagining the comms in that draft where it was like, we'll pick you Ezreal, just stay safe. And then they
died
walk
6 times.
They walk out of the booth for 0-7.
Is it better than the Kaisa, where it's like you talked about getting caught, but sometimes we've seen last year he actually was the one who was getting himself caught because he would ult in by himself and then just die?
Yeah.
That's the end of my question. Yeah, I was pretty close to putting Kwangdong Freaks at 9th as well. But I ended up going with Kwangdong in 8th just because in hopes that, Dudu returns to his big form and Cuz is really good and that the top side can carry. And then they just somehow play through the top side only. Because, again, I do agree, like, I was there, Mal was there with me on the desk when I was mauling the entire time. We all were basically watching what was going on today.
Because they had good games against Hanwha.
They had great mid-games.
Those were
had
winnable
some,
games.
Decent macro moments as well. I was like, this is interesting from Kwangdong. So it feels like some glimpses of hope, and then it got shut down pretty hard, which is kind of sad. But
that's what
it's
made
week
me...
1, and it's, I'm rolling the dice on this one. So
that's why I was a bit more
top
sure
side can carry.
that they weren't going to be that good, is when they had, like, things go well, and you saw, like, all right, this is the time where the top side carries, but it just is impossible.
But it was T1 and Hanwha.
That's true.
That's the one. That's another caveat. Like
Great
that.
teams.
And they're going to play KT next to, or they're also expected to lose to. And then the real test begins, because if they can come back from that after, I don't know how many series losing streak it is consecutively.
But I also feel like Kwandong always gets the really rough run at the beginning of a season. They almost always just like fall into that trap. I don't know what that is, but I mean, it's
just
not.
be lucky.
Yeah, or just beat
be
them, get the
unlucky.
upset, or something like that. Now, but we can move a little bit further up now. I think that's enough.
The next group.
We are. Yeah, I think is this the next group? Is this like? Do we get like
Yes.
a
50-50 split on this one.
50-50.
Yeah, it's like so we get like a section of 2 that we have a bit more hope for. And I think it's really kind of beautiful because this is where you get to that first playoff spot. And I think that this is where that first real spark
bubble.
of hope does happen for very different reasons. So I guess let's start with Nongshim. And Chronicler, just tell us why you've got them in.
Why
where
have
do
you
have
given
them?
a Pope?
Yeah, this
so
is the
early
playoff
on?
cutoff
Why
line.
do you
Yeah.
have them in
So
seventh?
I have them in 7th because I do think that as much as I like the roster, and I think that individually Jiwoo and Call Me, I think, are going to be really capable of having a Delight-esque arc where they get picked up by a top-tier team and get turned into like these really big superstars. Like Delight went from being on Brion, being a really part of why they were good, to then being on Genji, winning both LCK titles, and then now is on Hanwha and is still looking amazing there, although he still gets to play Rakan, which I don't know what that's about. And I think for Nongshim, the early weeks, they're going to have a really big advantage over a lot of the other teams, but I think that is going to fade a little bit as other teams get more and more experienced. And I do think that there is a hard ceiling on them. We feel Dundun, as much as I love him, for example, the way that you can lose gracefully and you can just get absolutely bodied, the way that Keen bodied him. And it's Keen, right? Again, it's against Genji, so I don't want to put too much stock into it, but I do think that looking at what Fear X has shown so far, outside of a little bit of level of over-aggression, they have actually looked good. One series was against Brion, but even in the series against KT, even though they were outclassed, I do think that they are a very proactive team that's really happy to just go for these crazy plays. And I just generally prefer the teams that are super proactive over teams that are. But I think these two teams are really close, and I wouldn't be shocked one way or another.
I think Nongshim is like the... There's something about the early game we've seen from Nongshim where they clearly have a nice plan. Everything goes really well. They're very aggressive. And then you start to
They're
get
like
hope.
the kids that do their homework.
Sylvie's ganking
You
now.
know? Yeah.
You have this hope that, okay, like, it's going to work out. Like, wow, is Nongshim doing it? They're doing it. But then they like miss the map completely and start chasing around and lose a ton of CS. It's like these small fundamental things about you have to know, like when you have this advantage, like what you turn this advantage into is a very small incremental advantage where you get a little bit of vision and prio on a dragon. They're like, we have an advantage, 4-man top, let's go. Like, and then they lose a lot of control, they lose a lot of turrets, and they lose a lot of just minions straight up on the map, lose a lot of CS, and it's like, if we could just push over the edge there, I'd be willing to say, like, oh, yeah, this team could go to playoffs. I mean, especially their early game we saw in that series earlier this week against, was it Genji, that they played was pretty impressive and gave me some hope, but then everything just fell apart, right? And on the side of Fear X, as to why, like Chronicler, I put them on the playoff line, when they lost to KT and got destroyed by that Barrel Hui composition, they still knew what they needed to do, and they were playing very carefully, and then they tried to start that Baron. Like, they knew how to play around the composition. They were very smart. They were able to discover, like, okay, this is a problem. We're getting pushed in. Like, we have to play carefully. If we try to approach them, we're just going to get poked out. Like, they're very wise about what's good in their composition, what's not. I think Nongshim a little bit more on the, what can we do to get ahead? And then they kind of, like, they're like the monkey that tries to grab too many peas, and like, you know that Aesop
What?
fable where like there's like a monkey that
No, I
tries
have
to...
no idea, but I get it immediately.
So there's like an Aesop fable where like a monkey is like trying to grab too many like things out of a tree, fruits, peas, something like this,
Bananas.
and he tries to carry too many, and then like he drops all of them, kind of thing. I feel like that's Nongshim that gets ahead, and then they're like, we gotta keep snowballing this, and then they can't hold on to the advantage
anymore.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just have
Poor
more
monkey.
faith in Nongshim over the course of a 9-week season, based on what I've seen in this first week compared to Fear X, because I feel like Fear X really hasn't changed as a team from last year's Sandbox. It's like, same team, you still got closer, they're still sending it because that's all they know how to do, right? And it just feels a little bit one-dimensional, right? They're very aggressive, very easy to read. If they're winning, they're going to probably stomp you if you're a weaker team. If they're losing, they're just going to run into you and lose in like 22 minutes, right? Nongshim, I feel like they've got Call Me on the way. He's looking fantastic. They have Ju, who's already really good. They have the ability to play around these carries. Top side of the map does feel a little bit doomed, but I mean, we're not talking about like big playoff contenders or international teams at this point, so they are still going to have weaknesses. I do have some hope that based on the glimpses we've seen from their macro in this week, that they can turn into something better than they were last year. And they have like such great synergy. They've been together for a long time, so that's why I gave them the slight edge over FearX.
Yeah, I gave them the slight edge mainly because of what Wolf's been saying quite a lot, which is like the known quantity, right? And you know what you're going to get from Nongshim. And I thought that in FearX's game against KT, they did look a little bit like they were going to be hopeless when they're crushed. And what I saw from Nongshim in their first match was the fact that something just fell on the floor.
Are you okay?
Sorry, that was my foot that fell off.
Oh, no, not his foot again.
That's fine. I
At
put
least
it
it
back on.
wasn't the
Very
front
heavy.
that fell off. But,
Yeah. No, but basically, I really liked what I saw from Nongshim in their first match with how well and cleanly they played the game. And for me, that makes me feel like they can very handily beat all of the teams underneath them, right? And they have to be able to be relatively good against FearX, Quantum Freaks, DRX, and Bro. And I think that they can very comfortably do that. I don't think that they're going to be, knocking over the Titans or anything like that. I don't think they're a blue shell. But I think that they'll just be consistently sixth, And I think that they'll be graceful.
Honest work.
And they'll just be great,
Yeah.
And I think that they are just they're just a happy team, and they're fun to watch. And we love Peter. We love Dundun. They're just full of spirit. Jiwoo plays weird stuff. We love that. Sylvie's actually really coming into his own as well. I actually think that he's been a bit of a improvement story slowly.
Yeah.
And
Very
agreed.
slowly, but
It is very
beginning
slow.
to bloom.
Yeah,
slightly.
he's
yeah,
not
yeah.
playing Wukong every game, yeah.
But we have seen a Wukong victory so far.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because I was like, why does that?
because
That was-
Sylvie's a Wukong one trick.
I know, but I don't.
No.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It is
I thought the
known.
meme was that they would just pick Wukong and do nothing and spin around. That was actually. I thank you for reminding me. That was actually the one of the reasons why Fox has a slight edge for me was because they actually pivoted and Willer played two really great games of Brand and Wukong, and I think that they identified that they can't just always do the same thing. But that's in one series, right? And also against
No, it was
a
against
weaker
Bro,
opponent.
and Brand is OP in the jungle. I
Brandon's
tested
very
it myself 2 games.
Yeah.
2 games.
How'd it
He's
go?
like-
Expert.
No, I mean, yeah, they just didn't do anything against it. And it's
Yeah.
FearX just
I
went
mean,
for
it is-
free. Like, it barely even counted in my mind.
I'm ready to
So-
move on.
It did look pretty good. Okay, let's move into true playoffs vicinity. Okay, this is where we need to get like the music to start rolling. This is where
if these 5
heads
teams-
are going to start rolling.
If these 5 teams don't make any of these 5 teams don't make playoffs, people are getting fired. Not us. I mean, like coaching staff, certain top laners.
They're getting
Thanatos
replaced.
appears. This is like
Thanatos is waiting.
This
He
is
is
actually like
sitting.
So you remember the Sky Castle ripoff that we did here in the LCK, where it was all about the West versus the East here,
Castle?
and
This is
like
before your time.
And Cloud Templar was absolutely majestic as the really angry
you
woman.
no, I just watched it.
Oh.
Yeah. Like the angry woman Cloud Templar, and he was just so incredibly good. Oh, it was amazing. Anyway, what it basically was, the premise was we're not an Eastern team, we're a Western team, And it was the bottom 5, that's not where you want to be. I actually really think that that's going to be the storyline of this season. Like, because there is very clearly a top 5 and a bottom 5, and if you're one of these top 5 teams and you fall down there,
It's bad.
yeah, it's real bad. And in fact, already the distinction has been made.
Mind the gap.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a large jump up, but we do have a unanimous 5th.
We do. And that is D plus Kia.
After today.
And
I had them
don't-
at 3rd until this happened
Really?
today. Yeah.
This
I
didn't
did.
actually change my opinion of them
It
at
changed a
all.
lot for me.
Huh.
No, it changed a lot for me as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, Valdez, you
But
explain.
you guys had them at 4th potentially.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I had them
had
at
them at
5th the
3rd.
whole time.
I just felt like they really had something special. I've really lost a lot of hope. I don't know why it's just.
Valdez's heart is broken, dude.
Well, this is
thought
like
we
the
had
pastor of the
something.
LCK. Like,
It sounds like he's going through a breakup.
It's the notebook.
he's the
Lucid
sad
looked great. They were
religious
setting
fanatic.
everything up. Showmaker looked really happy. Like everybody was on the same page.
This was game 1.
It was game 1, and even
Against
before
Bro.
today. No,
Cultist
Today as well.
realizes
Oh,
it's
game
not
one today.
actually
Yeah.
wine made out of water. Yeah.
And
All was good.
everything was great. And
Until
then,
it wasn't.
and then it wasn't. I don't know. Like I think that
It wasn't that bad. That was a banger series.
no, yeah, it was close. I think that aiming for me just kind of dropped the ball a
Valdez
lot.
remembered aiming.
I felt like so he was great. He was great on KT when everybody was a core. They had a lot of different carries, and then he kind of like stepped it up in moments where some of their other carries couldn't. Now it feels like they've got kind of something hanging off at the top. Like Kingan's up there, he's not really doing anything. He's getting gapped by a challenger player. Perfect's good.
Or
Don't
completely
get me wrong.
obliterating him to 0-7.
And he
And
was
then
playing
losing the
Udyr.
game.
He was playing Udyr, and he got a lot of attention from Lucid
Yeah.
to help out in the top side. I just think that Lucid and Showmaker, they were really happy. Things were looking really good. I thought aiming was like kind of only on an upward increase, but I saw a lot of stuff today again that reminded me that like this guy sometimes just fails in the clutch. He's not the guy, and I don't know.
he was the guy, and now he's
He
not.
was, and
He
now
is
he's
not
not.
the guy.
He
He
has
was
been
the guy in
replaced
playoffs
by Pioshik.
in summer.
Yeah.
He was the guy.
He was
I
actually-
think
his playoffs
occasionally
were so good.
I think occasionally he can be, and when he's supported by a lot of other great characters on the team, like that KT roster, he was able to step up at times. But I see certain things in his play that just leave me a little bit baffled. Yeah, lacking confidence. And then I'm like, he just doesn't have the same backing crew to help him out with that. So I kind of had this grand vision for them in third place. They're going to be really strong. Lucid's going to continue to get better. Aiming's going to like hard carry this team. But I just lost a lot of that, so they fell to 5th for me.
I think that they're not playing through aiming the same way that Cuz played through aiming at aiming's best, and so aiming as a result looks weaker. And I'm not talking about like him getting caught in that game too, and the Pioshik wraparound. That's like something we can forgive. It was a great play from Pioshik. He backed at a weird spot. People want to blame him. That's like not an issue for me. It's just that like when aiming isn't either left alone and they're really making use of top and mid, and then he just scales, or if he's not getting a ton of resources, like if he's kind of in the middle ground, like he has been so far, I feel like he doesn't excel in either, or he excels in either opposite end, but when he's straight up in the middle, he just kind of ends up being not that useful. But my bigger issue with this team is Showmaker seems to be an inconsistent quantity at the moment, and Lucid is definitely showing some growing pains, I think, at this point in time. I don't think he's playing badly by any means, but it does feel like there's some overextensions, there's some miscommunication between him and Showmaker, between him and Kingan, and I do kind of worry that, I'm not saying it's going to mean like they don't make playoffs or this is going to be bad, but I do feel like they will lose some critical games that will push them down to the bottom of our top teams because of these weird inconsistencies and some potentially like picks that happen where Lucid goes in and dies, and then it's a 5v4, they lose Baron, or they lose Elder, and they lose the game kind of situation. I feel like D+'s fundamentals are good, like we said, but there are some accidents that have happened and may continue to happen that I'm worried about.
And I just want to add a quick caveat before we let you talk, Chronicler, and that is that these are overreactions, and we're judging these teams based on 2 matches played. We're entirely aware of that. We don't care. We're going to continue doing so.
I'm glad that the half episode reminder that
Yeah, just
everything,
needed to get, like,
everything we're
Yeah, yeah.
saying is like it's 1 week.
Yeah, and
No, I've
and-
totally written them off, actually.
well, I mean,
It's gone from my
to
mind,
be
so.
honest, like it's kind of what you do when you're trying to take stock of like a week. I do it every week. I think I actually just do it every week, and I
do.
overreact, and then I
A lot
just go
changes
for another
every
week.
though.
Yeah,
Like,
and then I do it again.
Players change, environments change,
Meta.
100%.
morale,
I also think
meta, patches. Like, there's so much stuff.
You could also think of almost everything we're saying and every thought process that we have at the end of every week as like an angry all caps Reddit comment.
Yes,
That is like
seriously.
basically what we are right now. And or extremely happy
Yeah.
all caps comment, which we will get to later on in this episode.
Yeah, and there are a few of those that we could just read verbatim, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, your thoughts on D+?
Yeah, I am not often one to harp on itemization. I think itemization is something that is often really highly over-prioritized in conversations because
You do have a lot of feelings about that in this case.
in this case, I
does
actually
Hooney.
it was yeah. Well, Hooney had a great point of specifically the fact that Kingen and I think the Rumble itemization was not good, but it was more excusable.
He took a dash cannon detour.
He did, but
You
but
know.
that actually ended up working out, and they played towards it initially. It's more so his ult usage for Kingen that they weren't super happy with. I personally don't really care that much about Kingen's performance, but I do think.
Let's talk about that Lich Bane. Let's talk about the Lich Bane.
I mean, it's not. Yeah. So it's. But what I wanted to say is, if the guy that is supposed to just be your stable rock starts losing lane to the point where it breaks the game, maybe try something else that you have still under contract, unlike Poolbay, sitting, waiting, not playing. Thanatos, just. He's there. And I want to get it out of the way because I don't think that that's ever going to happen unless they actually start falling off towards the bottom and they really want to make some drastic changes. But both Showmaker going for a Lich Bane build on Orianna and then still purely 5v5ing makes zero sense to me. And aiming at 2 games in a row where his build was about as bad as it gets. And in both games, particularly the second game, he should have carried. And I think that KT... want to give all the credit to them. I don't think that like Pioshi played amazingly. BDD was for me the silent hero of the day. His Syndra in particular. We're reminded why.
But also, Beryl can play Melio?
Yeah, Barrel's Melio was also
The
super
hell?
clean.
Play
It was
anyone.
just
Guy's a warlock.
yeah. Yeah, Beryl is
Never
Barrel's
underestimate him.
a
He's
ditto.
pulling all the strings.
He's just
He's a ditto that accidentally copies the wrong thing sometimes
Yeah.
and goes home sad.
Would you say Aiming's build was more illegal today or when we bought Static Shiv when it was against the rules?
that's a very good question that I would need to deliberate on
That's
for a little
great
bit.
way of asking the question, though.
I
Just
think so because I don't often feel this way, but I feel like in both games, had he gone for different builds, in crucial moments, DK might have actually pulled through. Because in the first game, he went for a lethality build, which was not the good lethality build, which is Cyclo Sword in adjunction to Bloodsong, which actually gives you the burst to use that
that's the
mid-game
good one,
spike.
right? Yeah.
You get super, which we saw Deft use and then
Yes.
look amazing on immediately afterwards. And then he also went for a Zeri build where
He
he
went for Yomu's first, by the way.
Yeah,
Evolution.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
like, that's the budget Gale
And-
Force that I
and-
need that makes me go to them
and-
faster.
It's basically dashing if you
And-
run fast.
yeah.
And his Nami went for Slay, so he didn't even have extra burst damage from bubbles.
No. It was
Dream Catch
just
or whatever it's called.
it was-
so it was just an abomination in the bot lane. It was
and
terrible.
and
It was the
and
worst.
but the because the most telling feat to me was Perfect was 0-7 and Aiming still did like a full combo and chunked a fourth of his like nothing. He basically was unable, and then obviously Perfect tilt proof. 10 honors for my man, both from game to game, but also in that specific game. And then the Zeri game was very similar, where he went for a build that neither was really tanky, didn't use Hexblade, which I think is actually super good on Zeri, where you actually are able to tank a lot more, and then also didn't really go for a build where you do maximum damage, still going for things like the Runans. I just think that and Showmaker, as you already highlighted, if you go for a teamfight Orianna, just go Ludens and build actual AP items, because that will get you more value. And that all would already maybe put them in fifth. But then there was also just the fact that the level of disjointedness that was there last year still seems to be there, which is weird because a lot of the parts are swapped out. But like Lucid having an amazing gank early, and like I think mechanically actually played some of the team fights really well, but then also Flash engaging on BDD when the rest of the team isn't ready just speaks to me like, and this is something and this is something that can get fixed. There's also the question of, do you want to put Lucid, who is a great carry jungler, on a position like this? If you can figure out these things, I think DK can maybe make a move to fourth. I think they can contest, because it was really close between them and KT. So I don't think that DK's, but they have a lot to work on, which is why fifth for me makes sense, because if they don't work on any of it, then they'll be there. That's where they'll end.
Yep. I think that's perfectly reasonable. We're starting to get to the point where things are going to go awry. I think a lot of people understand why it's going to go awry for me. But when we move up to third place, most people have Harm Life sitting there. Chronicler, you have KT in fourth. Please explain.
Well, I just did a lot of explaining, but if
I guess
I have to,
you actually just did.
Do it
I mean, I
exactly.
kind of did. Yeah, it's to summarize it. I think that they look really good, but with this roster, I am always going to be worried that there will be a period in which, for no reason at all, they will suddenly not be good. And that's really
It happened
it.
today.
Yeah, exactly. I think Hanwha to
Def
me
just dashed into 5 people and died, and then they still won.
and then they somehow and I think the mojo is awesome. I think the team story is really good. Perfect is a perfect fit. I'm sorry, but it actually is true. Both in like how he seems to vibe with the team, and going from 0-7 to
POG.
to POG
Yeah.
in a team with Piosik and Barrel, that just feels right. But I do think that Hanwha to me is a extremely stable core. Doran notwithstanding, but Doran domestically is actually quite stable. That I think on average is just going to eke
Wait a
out.
minute. So you're saying?
I'm saying KT
Wait,
fourth.
so hold on. Well, as someone who has KT third and Hanwha fourth,
Yeah.
allow me to rebuke for a
Same.
moment
Uh-huh.
about the what did you say? Consistent core? What did you say?
Yeah.
Consistent, solid, stable. We're talking about Doran. We're talking about Peanut. We're talking about Zeka. I'm feeling like these are some inconsistent parts, and at the peak of all three of these, amazing, right?
Yeah.
But and I'm saying at worst like B actually, like never even like C or D, but
No, of course.
I think Zeka has often been very meta dependent. I think Doran, very emotional player. If this team starts streaking downwards, we saw what Kingen kind of helped this roster together sometimes during the he who shall not be named jungle issue was happening last season.
Voldemort jungle, yeah.
I don't know if Doran will be that, and I do worry about Peanut as well in terms of consistency, right? Again, in big matches. And I thought about this a lot today because KT had a great series-ish, like there were errors and stuff, and they hyped me with a family feel and all that stuff that we just talked about, but I thought a lot more about Hanwha's longevity. And we've seen this with Hanwha's super teams before, where it starts off really good, and then it kind of middles out, and then we go, oh, are they not going to make playoffs? And then they do, but, they end up getting like third or fourth place. I feel like the consistent elements I saw from KT, I trust more, and it's weird for me to say I trust Deft more than aiming right now. But
Than Viper?
but like I wouldn't go that far, but like I look at I spent all of last year thinking like, okay, Deft struggling a little bit, not being as impressive, aiming is better. It was somewhat of a controversial opinion at the time. I don't think Viper is ever going to be a problem, and I wouldn't say necessarily that I think Deft is better than him, but he can't do it alone, and I worry about some of the other moving parts around him. Like on paper, like we talked about before, Hanwha's upgrades are next to Genji's the best. You could even argue, I think some people could argue it's even better upgrades than Genji's. It depends on your opinion, but I do worry about longevity with this roster. Like, when you have so many ups and downs and possible meta changes and patches that could come to bite Zeka especially, I'm kind of pushing towards I have a little bit more faith in KT at the moment. This is an overreaction, so,
Nah, it's valid.
It's an underreaction, in my opinion.
Thanks for saying that. Thanks for saying that, man.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. You're welcome. I think I've got Hanwha in fourth place as well, so I guess I can chime in just a little bit because I kind of I echo the sentiment a little bit, but I also think that it was really smart the way they did it, but it may just not work. And I think that you're right. I don't know whether Doran is going to find the same highs that he found last year. Like how much of it is, we hit the right chords together during these finals. We hit the three-peat and it was great. And Doran was riding that high because we saw how much they fell off a cliff, both MSI and Worlds. That has a lot to do with travel and things like this. It can make things difficult, change things up. And I don't actually have any, I don't think that Peanut's going to be part of the problem at all. But I do think that Doran sometimes just has those days where it just doesn't work out. And we still have them in fourth, right? That's still a very good standing to land in. And what we're talking about is what these standings are going to look like by the end of the regular season. And so I think that they'll just have those games where they fall off a cliff. They might even have a week where they fall off a cliff, and it's just not going to work out. And I think that they'll be consistent enough to get fourth. That's sort of where I am. Yeah.
I think that Hum Life, when I first looked at the new roster, it's like Peanut's going to hold everything together, rather. He's going to be the gel. He's going to keep Doran in check. And, he's got Viper and Delight in the bottom lane. He could always play around that, and he'll just make kind of the solo lanes work out. But the more I think about it, it's like he used to play with Chovy all the time, and he used to just do whatever he wanted. domestically because he had Chovy, who always had prio somehow. And, Dorn was serviceable, and he kind of made it work. But I don't know. I just feel like after today especially, KT or Ulster just kind of have this magical better mesh, this better glue between them that just seems to somehow work, and perfect is the perfect fit and all that stuff. Home Life Esports, I'm a little bit worried, like Viper, he has shown that he is incredible, but he also can't solo carry a team by himself. So he's got Delight this time. Maybe that's good enough. They are still really good at 4th place, but I did have to give the slight edge to KT as well.
No, man, Payne is crazy. He turned Gory into player of the split in 2021. And look where that guy just lost a 1v1 by basing. Did you see the clip?
Yes.
No, what?
So but you have
Oh wait, yeah, no, I saw that. And
Yeah.
then he just burned to death
Yeah,
as he
he
walked
did.
up the Howling
Yeah.
Abyss.
And
Yes,
I want
no,
to,
did see
because
that.
I forgot about this, but he got player of the split award because he got the most POG points. Gory in the LCK.
And we put
and you
him-
know who his jungler was?
Peanut, yeah.
It was the nut.
This
And
is
his
known
top laner, Rich.
We were pretty high on Gory. The Korean casters were not. I remember when we did our votes for all of that. But anyway,
Yeah, I mean, I
I'm
don't-
still a
I
little
don't-
bit salty. But
Yeah, I think that that every point that you make on Hanwha is valid. I just remembered that. I thought it was too funny not to share.
Yeah. And
Because
Peanut's always good
I'd
domestically.
forgotten about it. Yeah, I
He's
don't
always gonna
want
be good,
I don't
but-
want Hanwha to end high because I am very sure that this roster will collapse as soon as they leave
Yeah.
for any other tournament. So that is that's a
And we
that's
know
a
there's
caveat.
none of them happening in Korea this
Yeah.
time around.
Yeah, so no, don't
We're
don't
getting
be
on a
too
plane,
good.
so please just don't send those ones.
Maybe I should put them fourth just to lower the risk.
yeah.
I
No, fifth,
also
fifth,
want to
fifth.
add the caveat that when we talk about how Viper, he's good, but he can't get it done alone. It doesn't mean because he's not good enough. It just means because he's an 80
No, you
carry.
shouldn't have
so
to,
you
yeah,
can't
yeah,
you
yeah.
can't actually get it done alone.
If
you're
there's
an 80
anyone
carry.
that
It's not how the
can,
game
it's
works.
him.
We've
Yeah.
seen times where he has insane KDAs and his team is just failing around him.
Yeah.
It's just it's League of Legends. Like, it's not about
Yeah.
Viper.
He
It's
is an
about
80 carry, so
game
by
is
the
the way
function
it
of
is.
80
Yeah.
carry, yeah, he just will not be able to do it if the rest of the team is falling apart.
And it's funny because we're having this conversation and we're speaking somewhat negatively about Home Life Esports, and I still think that Viper Delight is the best bottom lane that we have.
Delight, dude. Yeah, we haven't. And no one has mentioned Delight at all because he's
Just obviously super duper good.
just
Yeah.
doesn't warrant any discussion.
No, he's just amazing. Okay, now we're going to get into KT, Genji, and T1. There have been a little
Why do we
bit
have to
of.
group those together?
There's been a
Max?
little.
Yeah, I feel like
So
I feel
Yeah, I
like
thought
you're
we
doing
got
a
into
group
KT a while ago.
no, there's like a couple of you guys that got KT up there. All right, Wolf,
Yeah,
third
no,
place. Valdez, third place.
Yeah, we did the third and fourth place.
Yeah. No,
Well, there's another one in third place for some reason for you.
yeah, I got Genji in third place. I think especially for the spring season, I just don't think that it's really going to. I think they've made a lot of changes, right? Like there's a lot of these players that haven't been playing together 4 hours long, and I think that it's just going to take a little bit of time to get themselves in there. I mean, it take a little bit of time. Third place is really good, and above them. Is where we can start a little bit more of the conversation. I don't know, like
for you, yeah.
yeah. So I guess we can talk about T1. And so we have unanimously put T1 in second place. I know there's a lot of T1 fans who might be a little bit disappointed. One Worlds. Why the heck aren't we suggesting that they're going to be first?
I think that's almost part of the reason.
That's
That
the
is the
thing,
reason.
yeah.
It's spring season. Yeah.
And I think they've already come out like saying pretty much like with their gameplay, we're going to not go super hard. We're not going to take things mega seriously.
100%.
And we are going to just try and relax our way through so that we can put on the gas when it matters. And I 100% respect that. I don't think that that's going to get them a first place.
Yeah, I think that will just not. It doesn't mean they're not going to win the tournament, but like they're probably not going to end up in first place in the standings because I think they will drop some weird games that.
They're going to pick like we can scale all off attack speed and wind.
Yeah,
kind of
or
guys
80
games.
cannon. Because why not?
Yeah. That 80 cannon Belveth Azir, who was it? Like, what was
I
Guma
know.
playing?
But
But it was not.
80
it
cannon
was not
Belveth
great.
alone. No. Yeah, so I actually want to echo that. That actually, for me, is the main part. I also think that adding Coma, what I imagine T1, their look is going to be is we just won Worlds. So after all those years, we were able to reclaim a title. We finally did it. We didn't end up going in a situation
And Coma
where...
has won back-to-back Worlds before with
so-
teams. So,
so
yeah.
so that even further reinforced it for me. I think that their only real goal this year, even though in the things they're saying we want to win everything, they want to win Worlds again. That to me is, I think, everything that T1 is going to be doing this year is in light of that ultimate goal of winning Worlds back to back, and again reinforcing that which is already kind of given, but I think in the new era it would still be really valuable to the org. And in that light, I think you should just take it a little bit easy in spring, and they might still end up winning spring when it comes to playoffs. We saw them level up extremely heavily last year in playoffs as well. That's a completely different discussion, and they're still second in the LCK.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine they're gonna
they're cruising.
They're not
in a second.
because they had a really jam-packed offseason as well, right? So I think they're just gonna pick your 80 cannons.
I would say that last spring we had a much weaker set of strong teams than we do this time in terms of rosters. So I think they played last spring somewhat similarly to how this one is going to go, except that they played their own meta. They messed around and then they formed the meta while they were kind of limit testing. And then they just crushed everybody, right? I think this time the competition is fiercer. They're still going to limit test. They're still going to try to see what they can figure out, to see if they can make their own meta, make their own play style. And then when we swing around second round robin, that's when like the screws will tighten a little bit, and we'll be like, all right, we need to get as high of a seed as possible for playoffs, and we'll move into playoffs, and that's where the style will form. I feel like to a certain extent that's kind of how they did Worlds as well, where they kind of messed around a little bit, and then suddenly we go into playoffs. They're playing the same style. They're playing the style they're good at. They crush LNG, go all the way through, win the whole thing. So I think that, just to reiterate this point, like there will be some crazy, wild, and wacky T1 games where T1 antis will be like, it's not even that good. Like, what is this build?
I thought they were only going to not say words.
It's a great impression, Wolf.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I mean, sometimes the most aggressive T1 fans can make the same sounds too, but it just depends on which side you're on. But I do think that this team will be one of the best teams, if not the best, even if their place in the standings doesn't reflect it.
Yeah, it could also be like 17-1 and 16-2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the difference, just because they're like at second place doesn't mean they're worse than Gen G or like worse than KT in the case of Atlas.
Spoilers.
It's just,
Kind of at this point, that
process
people
of
will really
elimination
die.
probably gets you
Yeah.
there. Yep.
It's also a deaf team. So
they're a great team. We know that a lot of their players have leveled up in a big way. It's why they won Worlds. But yeah, they're doing a victory lap. It's going to take them some time to really like hit that stride once again. I mean, they're already in that stride, but you know what I mean. Like to actually put 110% to winning every single game and doing that. So yeah, I think that Gen G probably just going to be the team that is like, we're here to win every single game. We are the super team. We have spent all the money. We're doing it. Also, Tovy's really good at winning, like regular seasons and stuff. So
He is now. He just wins every time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
He didn't win for a really
I
long
think
time,
Gen
but
G
then he
now-
didn't lose ever.
with him, with an even better roster,
He got it now.
they should be first in my mind.
yeah.
Not mine, but yeah.
This was a really tough one for me because Genji showcased this week a little bit of, like, Pays had a few whoopsies. Chovy also, tripped over a few banana peels, let's say, and there were definitely some moments where I was like, okay, a
Calling Nico
little
a banana
rusty. Yeah, a little rusty. It actually made me tempted to say, actually, I think I do want to put T1 first because this team needs time, and so maybe Genji will also drop some games early on in the season because they're still coming back. But I've got to trust in that Kane has an amazing champion pool. Canyon has likely very often 2 winning solo lanes he can play through, and then he has Pays and Lehens in bot lane. Canyon's agency is super high. He's always been amazing when he has those opportunities, even if he is just playing boring tank champion. So this is less of a week 1 overreaction for me in terms of my Genji prediction. It's more of just I think, like, in the way my brain works is that they should be the best team, and T1 will make some whoopsies with their eclectic play style, let's say. So I trust Genji's going to get it done, and if I had to predict who would win this season, it's really hard because T1 won Worlds, no roster change, but Genji always somehow gets it done. So it's really tough.
Yeah, I don't have that much to add to it. The one thing I am more worried about with this team, although they were always able to get that done as well, is playoffs performance. I do think that Keen in particular is, we saw this last year as well, has had a really marked performance drop-off when it comes to playoffs, where games like the Darius game that we've already seen, although that was against Dundon and Nongshim, right? So I think it's a little bit easier to put out the type of pressure that you need to. A game like his Quinn last year, we stopped seeing that from him. So I'm a little bit more worried about whether or not this Gen G is going to have the same level of impunity that they do in playoffs that we saw with the previous roster. Even though Doran is inconsistent, it feels like it did always lined up well. And Lehans actually had a very similar... Lehans' playoffs last summer were really rough. And that was after he had really had an incredible split. For Lehans, I think it's a bit more of a gray area because I don't think that's something that he always does.
Yep.
But yeah, for me, Gen G, the team to beat, and domestically, I think that also due to their style, they are the regular season kings for me. They are the team where the barrier of you must pass this to even have a chance to win against them is so incredibly high that I don't think they're going to drop random games. And I think T1, while playing Mario Kart with
They'll
Carriat,
they'll have more fun.
Yeah.
Gen G will
Doing
have
the look
less fun.
Yes.
Because they'll just boom people.
yeah. Well, Keen will have fun while playing
Against some
200 CS up with a counter pick. Yeah, having a good time.
I think T1 might accidentally just come first.
Could happen.
I think it might just happen. They might just be like having fun, and I think that they are going to be doing the victory lap, but they're just so good that maybe they'll just win. Especially with how consistent, how much more consistent Owner has been. The team is just looking pretty ridiculous. But I put KT in first place, and I probably need a little bit of an speech. So there's multiple reasons as to why this is the correct place to put them. One of them is I rolled a 10-sided die and got 1. That's a good way to do it because actually you could argue that they could be anywhere in the standings.
Is it because they're perfect?
No. It's because they're anything. They're a
They're
chameleon.
they're Schrodinger's team. They're
Yeah.
both the best and the
They're
worst
all
team.
of the things. Yeah. They're like having an ice cream in the fridge and having eaten that ice cream. You know, it's just all of the things.
I
Having
don't
the
really
cake
play
and
that many
eating it
board
too.
games, but is there a 5-sided die? Because that's what I think the worst case scenario for K2 would be is 5th. I don't know if they ever drop down to
Maybe you
7,
could just
8, 9, 10.
actually maybe you could just roll a die. Maybe just 6 is enough. Maybe you could just roll a die and that's fine. Because yeah, I think it's probably impossible for them to be worse than DRX Bro or Quantum Freaks.
For sure.
I don't think that that's going to happen. But I do think that they could end up anywhere within the rest of the league, right? Like they could miss out on playoffs or they could be the best team. And I think that for me, what put me in a position where I needed to put them in first place is that it's an even year. And Beryl is in the LCK.
It's very important.
So pretty much what happens is in the odd years, Beryl doesn't really play all that well, probably puts a lot of money into a gacha game.
It was in the odd year. He was 1 game away from winning the World's
I know,
Finals.
so imagine if he hadn't have
Unfortunately.
spent that whole year playing.
Too bad it was an odd year.
Yeah, it was an odd year.
Could have been the difference maker.
It was an odd year. I remember I was casting the final, and I thought to myself, "Wow, this is what Gacha Addiction does. Gets you 1 game away from the world final." No, but it is, the fact is he has won the even years for the last 4 years. I guess it's technically the last 2 years, the last 2 even years, but it's 2024. It's time for him to win again.
Even number of world titles.
Yeah, yeah.
He has a player from the league that I've only heard as the best league in the world, LCS, as well. Mark.
Yeah, Mark
has joined.
Has a challenger player.
You've heard of all of the Korean comments saying like, what is this LCS place? Like hyperbolic time chamber? Like what the heck's going on? That's what
just saying.
I mean, it's
pretty
real.
good today.
This Mark guy, he's pretty good. But I also just think that like KT look like they are having the most fun out of any team that I've seen. And it looks to me like they're motivated. It looks to me like they're meshing well.
It's like they're having the most fun out of any team I've seen since I joined the LCK. It almost feels like that's a bit of an exaggeration because we have seen some really fun T1 games in our time.
True.
Guys, Nongshim is right there. Come on, you can't disrespect him
I
like
mean,
that.
but
Okay, but having a
Nongshim
fun
is
game and
Dundon.
losing is different than having a fun game and winning. Right?
Yeah.
They win sometimes.
They were first place, if you remember. But yeah, basically, I didn't know where to put KT, and so I went, screw it, I'm putting them in first. That's what I'm doing. That's because I can see it. I can see it.
And what I do want to highlight, every year there is something that goes, at least two things generally that go horribly wrong with the list. Do you want to take what could be horribly? What would be
what's your
one guess?
Weird, crazy
twist? Because I think there's we have a lot of consensus. Obviously, there's a little bit of it. You have KT higher. We have some variation within the tiers, but at most it is very uniform. There's got to be a bunch of stuff that we're just getting completely wrong, because there always is.
So I think that when it comes to preparing for a swap, the weird thing is that I feel like my safety swap is just to swap my way to Valdez's list, where I just swap KT and Genji.
Yeah.
But I have a backup swap, and that is, once again, Humble Life Esports doesn't work out, and I can swap them with FearX. That's what I'm thinking might be a possibility.
Your foot, man.
Because I think maybe Willa just cracks the code and he's just branding all over everyone and having the greatest time. There is a world where that team gets it together and does winning. Maybe. I think Clear has so much potential as well, so maybe I'm biased. I don't know.
My biggest concern is that one of Hanwha Life Esports D+ or FearX will overperform, probably Hanwha or D+, and end up in top 2 or top 3, and that'll mess things up. Because I'm also not super worried about the bottom 4 teams. We have fairly similar lists. That might actually be the deciding factor of who wins, is which bad team was or which bottom 5 team was the most bad. That might actually be a weird thing. But overall, that part is just way unknown. So I'm really thinking about what if Hanwha actually is the second best team in LCK, or what if D+ actually gets it together and they're the second best team or something like that could concern me. But
well, speaking about being concerned, that's what we have to get into now, because we need to add some stakes. We need to spice this up. We need to try and work out exactly what it is going to cost us to be the worst predictorizers. All right, and so now what we do is we all pull one, and if we're
not doing Atlas's one. That's not happening.
What do you mean? We are 100% doing that.
They're not going to allow that to happen.
Who goes first? I'll go first.
What do you mean first?
Go ahead. Draw first.
For the loser.
Aren't we drawing one and then that happens?
No.
We're all drawing our own punishment.
What you have to do if you
So I'm going first because I don't want Max.
Oh, God.
I'll go second.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. That's Wolf has a great one, which is draw a large L on forehead for first playoffs cost. So if I lose, I'm going into the cast with a giant L on my forehead. That's a good one. That's
I like
dope.
that movie too back in the day. All right, Wolf, what you got?
Okay, I got the mustache one, which I probably can't do.
Okay, well then we put it back and he redraws. No,
all right.
Why can't you do the mustache?
Because he's getting married.
Well,
I don't want him to.
Then he actually has to do Valdez's one.
We'll just shave it off before the wedding.
Oh, well, I got Atlas's one, which is.
That's not happening, Max. You guys can't see this, but it's basically just someone buzz cutting.
You just buzz cut a line down the top of your head.
We are not buzz cutting a line down someone's.
Wedding, yeah.
Now, if somebody could get a wig that has this hairstyle or a giant bald spot, I mean,
maybe
I'll wear
that
it
could
on
be
the
like
show.
the funny wig.
That could be fine. Yeah.
All right, funny wig
wear a
one.
swinging cap, a swimming cap or something like that, and then.
It's fine. I'm not going to lose, so I'm not too worried. But
all right, so he's going to keep that one. Okay.
All right, so this is what's actually going to happen, whatever Max chooses.
Goatee?
Oh no!
Or do I have to change my head to like a pumpkin? Because it's
only
it's
hair
really
right
cute.
here.
Like, look
Not
at-
the chin strap.
Not a chin strap, but
I can't actually
just
grow
here.
that much.
We might have to
hair
draw
there.
it in then.
But I think like if
like
I
the
did,
reverse
This
Charlie
is the best.
Chaplin,
This is the best timeline.
yeah, I like
Yeah,
honestly
and then
though, like
I have
if
the
I
mustache, so
if I do shave all of it off except this,
gonna
I
make
will
them draw
kind of
some
look
in.
like a '90s rock band lead singer.
we could also just vote on the best one that we think is the best, and then whoever loses has to do that
Oh,
one.
can we do that?
let's do Wolf's one.
Mine is the best, right?
It's the best.
And it's the least, because you just rub it off after the show is done, and it's fine.
Also, I
Yeah,
don't
it's
wanna
pretty good. I do like
Grow
it.
a mustache.
My plans have been dashed. Let's do the L.
You're
Yeah,
welcome,
let's just
Pog
all
State.
take an L. We'll all
Yeah.
just take an L.
You're welcome, Pog State.
That's beautiful. But I'm glad that we all, got a little bit creative, and I went a little bit too far, and I apologize.
You
I
never do that, Max.
I've never done that before. No. I can't believe it. I did make another hair bet this week as well.
Yeah, that did happen.
Yeah, it did. However, it was a pretty it
Max
was
is a
pretty
snowboarder
useless.
now, so he's just radical.
Yeah, I'm pretty radical.
Reckless.
Yeah, and reckless is here, so that word's in our brain a little bit more. So you know how it is.
I don't think we should talk about Reckless. They're not doing great.
Hey,
We'll do it tomorrow.
lost the first couple of games, but that's fine, and you can definitely hop on Wolf's stream and check all of that out. In fact, you probably did because this is coming
Yeah.
out afterwards.
Cut it
Or
from
you-
No
the
way.
show.
Actually, no. It might be good to mention. So we're all co-stream
Yes.
challengers together.
Yes.
Between all of us, and we'll host each other, and we'll tweet about it. So you'll be able to figure out who's doing it for the day. And often we also just hang out in Discord.
And
together
please
while watching
follow
it.
all of our streams and watch it, and give a lot of interest so we can bring it back officially.
Yeah, that would be really
Bring
cool.
back challengers.
We need as much positive reinforcement so that we can use it as ammunition to go back and get the show
Yes.
reinstated because
gonna
we
bring it back.
absolutely love Challenger and we just want to be able
So
to
glad you
actually
guys
do
are
it
all
like a
you're
real
all true
broadcast.
challengers.
Oh, 100%.
now.
Like it was a broadcast unlike any other, and we just wish that it was back alive once again. Maybe some crowdfunding
Amen.
options, but if you come and check out the co-stream, you will hear some of our musings about just how we could potentially monetize the whole situation. But that is not for here. And now it is time for us to say goodnight. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the very first Pog State of 2024. There's going to be plenty more to come. Tune in to the LCK as well, starting off on Wednesday, and it's going to be another banger week. Just cannot wait for more LCK. We'll see you soon.